On Disney Plus, there's an animated series that proposes us what would have happened if things had gone a different way in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And I'm so excited!
That's why today on the Summarizer, the first episode of What If? This episode is titled, What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger? And it all starts with a voiceover telling us that time, space, is not a linear path, confirming to us the existence of a multiverse. The voiceover continues telling us that reality is a prism with unlimited possibilities and that just one choice in a lifetime can change everything. That a single choice can split into infinite realities and create many alternate worlds to the ones we already know. All this is being told to us by the Watcher, who says he is the guide in these great new realities. From here we go to Earth, in June 1943, when the Nazi army is marching across Europe causing disaster, death, and destruction. So the Allied armies join forces to create a super soldier, and here we see Steve Rogers all skinny, who was put through the process we already know. This young man from Brooklyn managed to become Captain America, made a great sacrifice to preserve peace, and was frozen but managed to save the Earth. That's, of course, in the story we've all seen.
Yes, that's true.
But the Watcher takes us to another universe, to another reality where a single decision changed everything and we have a totally new hero. We are at the Allied States headquarters. They have developed a serum, and here we have Steve Rogers all skinny as a young man, along with Agent Carter. At this point, they both approach the scientists. The doctors tell Carter to go to the booth, but she decides to stay. It's here that the Watcher says that this was the moment that changed everything.
I know that, faggot! I know that!
The moment that created a new universe, as Peggy Carter decided to stay, and soon she would be the one to explore the unknown. At this moment, she sees a suspicious guy and tries to go after him.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
But he blows up a bomb, and we see many of the Allied army agents die. A skinny Steve Rogers confronts this guy, but he quickly defeats him. And while Peggy Carter goes after him, the guy steals a serum for the super soldier. But Peggy goes after him and shoots him, making him fall to the ground. Here Peggy goes to Steve and tries to help him, and Howard Stark tells the general that they can only turn a super soldier now because the energy's running out. The general orders Howard to get into the machine, but he doesn't want to, so Peggy Carter tells Steve she'll be right back, and she runs and gets into the machine. While the general tells Howard Stark not to activate the machine because she is a woman, Stark pulls down the lever and we see Peggy being injected with the super soldier serum. The machine begins to do its work, and when it's finished, we see a pretty big Peggy Carter emerge from the machine.
You're so... big.
Howard Stark is very excited to see her and the project working, but the general is really upset and says this was a failure. He reproaches Peggy and tells her that because she's a woman, she can't be on the front lines of combat. So then she goes into training.
Let the training montage begin! Cue inspirational music. Bullshit.
Now we are with the Hydra troops and their commanding officer who's looking for the Tesseract. They eventually manage to find it and they kill the doctor. Meanwhile, Howard Stark tells the general that they must get the Tesseract because its energy source is unique and can supply them for centuries. But the general says no because he doesn't want to risk soldiers. We're with Peggy Carter who is drinking, but since she has the serum, it doesn't do anything to her. Then Howard Stark appears and gives her the Captain America suit, but the most important thing is that he gives her the shield. She at first kinda doesn't want to and is a little embarrassed, but in the end, she accepts. We're with the Hydra agents who are transporting the Tesseract, but at that moment one of the bikers falls through a shield and we see how Captain Carter is now a Captain America and starts a mission. She jumps in a brutal way, so the Hydra troops try to run her over, but Peggy is stronger and ends up launching the convoy into the air. The Hydra agents continue to arrive, but she begins to defeat them one by one. She fights them all off and takes them all out, even knocking this big guy down in literally one hit. And then she arrives with the Doc, who has the Tesseract, and takes it to their base. Howard Stark gets the Tesseract and starts making some kind of suit, while Peggy and Steve plan their next hit on Hydra. At this point, the two have a conversation. Steve tells her he owes her one, but Peggy tells him he owes her more than one because he also owes her a dance. We then see Peggy go and take a bike from a Hydra guy on the move, and by this point she is much stronger than the Cap of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She jumps on the bike and starts killing everyone. No one can stop her, and then she makes another jump with the bike and throws it at the Nazis, blowing them up. Peggy Carter continues to fight and comes to the rescue of Sergeant Bucky Barnes. She manages to rescue this allied army and they leave, but when they are outside they are visited by many Nazi tanks and start bombing them. We see how Captain Carter deflects tank missiles with her shield, and at that moment Peggy asks for air reinforcements, and Steve arrives flying in a metallic suit, something like Iron Man's suit.
This just got weird.
And together they start destroying all the tanks. They make a perfect couple and no one can stop them for now. So they end up defeating everyone and the Allies end up congratulating them both. But she tells them to keep their flattery and applause to themselves because there's a war to win. Then we see how the shields the enemies. We see that the female Captain America was a success. The general takes credit for the captain's success. As he talks to the president, he also takes credit for the creation of the Hydra Stomper, this robot we saw Steve drive. Together with Peggy Carter, they begin to deal many blows to Hydra, and they even fight in the air and knock down planes. Meanwhile, at the Hydra base, we meet this guy who's talking about the Tesseract, but at that moment he receives a visit from one of his commanders, who tells him that the Führer needs him and his troops. But this guy tells him that he is a god, and that the Führer is just a man. The sergeant scoffs, so this guy kills him and then takes off his face because it was a mask, and we find out he was Red Skull.
I can't believe what I'm seeing!
And all of his allies revolt and start shouting, "Hail Hydra!" Meanwhile, Peggy Carter and Steve Rogers have a few drinks, and Steve asks her how it felt to get the serum. So she tells him that it was normal, that now people perceive her differently, and that she no longer has to scream to be heard and respected. At that point, Steve says he's still the same skinny guy he always was, only now in a metal suit. But Peggy tells him he's still her hero, touches his hand, and realizes she is clearly interested in him. Steve tells her that she is his hero too, and they both go to close the scene with a kiss, but at that moment Howard Stark appears and tells them that Sergeant Bucky Barnes has stolen a Jeep. He appears out the window and calls to them. We are in the famous train operation. Steve comes with the flying Hydra Stomper, stands in front of the train and tries to stop it, while Captain Peggy Carter orders to start the mission, and we see how everyone rushes to the train. At that moment, Steve enters the robot suit, but it was all a trap because there were a lot of explosives. He orders Peggy and the rest of the team to leave the train, but he is still inside and we see the train explode and fall down a slope. Later, we see Peggy Carter return with the General and Howard Stark, where Steve's disappearance is confirmed, and then we see Peggy Carter propose a new operation to them. She tells them all to go destroy Hydra's castle in honor of Steve. So many of the military accepts, and even Howard goes along with it. Then we see Captain Carter heading to the castle, jumping in and start killing the Hydra agents easily. They kill everyone, and together with Bucky Barnes plan to infiltrate the inner part of the castle. Meanwhile, we see that Red Skull had the Tesseract and starts testing it. We see how he puts it in a machine and it begins to emit a lot of energy, while Agent Carter and Bucky Barnes infiltrate. Here Bucky finds in a dark room the Hydra Stomper where Steve would be. Meanwhile, Red Skull, who activates the Tesseract, manages to open a portal and a beast with tentacles begins to come out. At that moment, Peggy Carter enters the room and sees the monster. Meanwhile, Bucky finds Steve lying there. He's hurt, he wants to help him, but Steve tells him to put him in the suit and overload them with electricity with the generator. So they do, but Steve falls to the floor inside the suit.
Oh no!
But then he turns it on and goes upstairs to get Peggy. Meanwhile, the monster that came from another dimension takes a Red Skull and kills him. So to stop the portal, Howard tells her to take him to the controls. Peggy does so in one leap as the octopus continues to enter. The octopus grabs Peggy, but at that moment, Howard manages to activate the reverse suction, and we see the portal start to swallow the octopus, but it is taking Peggy with it. At that moment, Steve appears in the Hydra Stopper
Surprise, motherfucker!
and saves her. But at that moment, the beast starts screaming and starts hurting everyone, so Steve and the robot gets out and leaves his allies far away in a safe zone. But this monster doesn't want to leave so easily and clings to stay on Earth. Howard Stark says he can't do anything, so Peggy runs over and tries to push him in, but the beast is too heavy and can't. Just then, Steve comes in with the suit, but he runs out of energy and falls. Steve gets out of the suit as he sees Peggy pushing the beast. Unfortunately, to get this one back in the dimension, Peggy has to push him and she will go in that dimension too. Steve tells her not to, but she tells him there's no other way and that she owes him a dance lesson. So she pushes the beast and goes back to the other dimension. Everything explodes and Steve is shocked to see that Peggy Carter is gone. Steve is left very sad and everyone will wonder what's going on with Peggy. Well, in the next scene, we see the Tesseract being used. We see it open a portal from which it comes out sliced up octopus pieces. Behind it, Peggy Carter comes out and sees Hawkeye and Nick Fury.
You got me on that one. I love Sam Jackson, dog.
She asks them about Steve Rogers, but Fury tells her the war ended 70 years ago, so basically the same thing happened as with Cap, only he was frozen for 70 years. But then we hear the voiceover at the beginning which says, Peggy's decision started a new story and gave the multiverse a new hero. And he also says, as for me, these are my stories. I am the Watcher. I watch and see everything that goes on here, but I must not and cannot interfere. As we see an infinity of stars, planets, and realities. And so ends episode 1 of What If, named What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger? Comment which series or movie you'd like me to summarize for future videos. See you later!
Okay. Bye.